Hello, I'm Ryan J. Wells, and today we're diving into 4 toxic habits that can quietly make people lose respect for you. These habits may seem small at first, but they're far more than just minor quirks. Over time, they can deeply damage your relationships and slowly erode your reputation in ways you might not even notice until it's too late. We all have flaws, and that's human. But these specific habits are particularly dangerous because they strike at the heart of how we connect with others. Left unchecked, they can undermine friendships, create distance in your professional relationships, and even chip away at your own self-respect. I'm not just here to lecture. I've made these mistakes myself and faced the painful consequences. Through reflection and the timeless teachings of Stoic philosophy, I've learned how to break free from these patterns, and today, I want to share what I've learned with you. Along the way, I'll offer some personal stories that might resonate with you and hopefully inspire your own growth. Before we dive in, if you find value in this message, I invite you to subscribe and join this community where we strive to grow together. Now let's begin this reflective journey toward transformation. Grab a coffee, get comfortable, and let's explore these harmful habits. More importantly, let's discover how to overcome them with the wisdom of Stoicism, a philosophy that teaches resilience, inner peace, and living with integrity. Habit 1. Gossiping. Let's get real about gossiping. It's one of those habits that's so easy to slip into, yet so destructive once it takes hold. Almost everyone indulges in it at some point, but what we don't often realize is the long-term damage it can cause. Not just to others, but to ourselves. Gossip might seem harmless, even fun in the moment, but underneath, it's like a slow poison that erodes trust and respect. I remember back in my college days when gossiping felt like a way to bond with friends. We'd sit around for hours, sharing stories about other people's lives, feeling like we were in on some secret. It made us feel connected, but it wasn't real connection. It was built on the fragile foundation of someone else's privacy. One incident sticks with me even now. There was a girl in our group. Let's call her Emily. She was shy, a little different from the rest of us, and often kept to herself. When I found out she had a crush on a guy who, in our eyes, seemed way out of her league, I made the mistake of sharing it with the group. What started as a casual comment quickly turned into a joke that spread like wildfire. The look on Emily's face when she found out what we'd been saying about her still haunts me. Her eyes were filled with hurt, and you could see the trust between us break right there. She distanced herself, stopped coming around, and soon she was gone from our lives entirely. In that moment, I realized how something as simple as a careless word can cause lasting damage. The Stoics, like Epictetus, teach us to keep silence for the most part and speak only when necessary. Gossip is a form of meddling in other people's lives, and when we engage in it, we're not just filling time. We're undermining the foundation of trust that relationships are built on. I learned the hard way that when you gossip, people start to wonder, what do you say about me when I'm not around? It creates an atmosphere of suspicion, a subtle tension that can slowly pull relationships apart. Instead of gossiping, imagine what would happen if we used our words to uplift others, to speak with integrity, and to keep private matters private. The Stoics remind us that our character is defined by how we act when no one is watching. So the next time you feel the urge to gossip, pause and ask yourself, am I contributing to an environment of trust, or am I eroding it? Habit 2. Being unreliable. Now let's talk about something that hits a little closer to home for many of us: being unreliable. We've all been there, saying yes to plans or commitments only to flake out at the last minute. It seems harmless at the time, but what we often fail to realize is that being unreliable can deeply damage how others perceive us. In fact, Reliability is one of the pillars of trust, and without it, that trust begins to crumble. I learned this the hard way. In my early 20s, I was that friend, the one you couldn't really count on. I had a bad habit of overcommitting and then canceling plans last minute, always thinking it was no big deal. Life is busy, right? I figured my friends would understand. But there was one moment that opened my eyes to just how much damage my flakiness had caused. One of my closest friends, Sarah, had spent weeks planning her birthday party. She was so excited, pulling together every little detail, and I promised her I'd be there. But when the day came, I got caught up in something else and decided not to go. Worse yet, I didn't even let her know until hours after the party had already started. I can still remember the sound of her voice when I finally called, disappointment wrapped in a quiet sadness. She didn't say much, but the silence was enough. I had let her down in a way that couldn't be smoothed over with an apology. After that, our friendship slowly changed. Sarah stopped inviting me to things, and we drifted apart. It wasn't a sudden fallout, but rather a gradual distancing that felt even more painful. Being unreliable had told her, in no uncertain terms, that she couldn't depend on me, and that message lingered long after the party was forgotten. Stoic philosophy teaches us that our actions are a reflection of our inner character, and nothing speaks louder than reliability. As the Stoics remind us, integrity isn't just about grand gestures. It's about consistency, about showing up even in the small things. Reliability says to the world, I respect your time, your effort, and your trust. It's not just in friendships either. Early in my career, I had a similar issue at work. I was eager to impress and took on more projects than I could handle. Deadlines slipped, and I always had an excuse, thinking my charm could make up for it. But during a performance review, my boss laid it out bluntly. Your work is good, but your unreliability is becoming a problem. People don't know if they can count on you. That hit hard. It made me realize that no matter how good my intentions were, if I didn't follow through, I was letting people down. To fix this, I had to start being honest with myself and others about what I could realistically handle. It's better to commit to less and do it well than to overpromise and underdeliver. Being reliable is about honoring your word and showing up when you say you will, whether it's for a birthday party, a project deadline, or just a small favor. By being consistent and reliable, you earn people's respect and trust in ways that are far more lasting than any grand gesture. So next time you're tempted to cancel plans or let a deadline slide, remember, reliability is about building trust, one small action at a time. Habit 3. Interrupting others. Let's move on to a habit that's often overlooked but can be incredibly damaging: interrupting others. On the surface, it seems like a small thing, maybe even a sign of enthusiasm. But the truth is, constantly interrupting people sends a clear message. What I have to say is more important than what you're saying. It's a subtle way of telling someone that their voice, their ideas, don't matter as much as yours. And that's a fast way to lose respect. I used to be guilty of this all the time. In fact, I didn't even realize how much I was doing it until it was pointed out to me. Back when I was starting out in my career, I was part of a team that had weekly brainstorming sessions. I was eager to impress, so I'd jump in with my ideas, often cutting people off mid-sentence. I thought I was showing initiative, being proactive. But to everyone else, I was being disrespectful. One day, during a particularly intense meeting, my manager stopped everything and looked directly at me. "You need to let people finish their thoughts," she said bluntly. "You're not listening. You're just waiting for your turn to talk." I remember feeling embarrassed, my face getting hot as the room went quiet. But the truth of her words hit me hard. I wasn't really participating in a dialogue. I was just waiting for the next opportunity to jump in. I wasn't listening. I was simply talking over people. After that meeting, a colleague pulled me aside. She said something that stuck with me. "You come across as dismissive, like you think your ideas are the only ones that matter." That was never my intention, but intentions don't always match perception. And in that moment I realized that my interruptions were making people feel unheard and undervalued. The Stoics, like Seneca, teach us that. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. True wisdom comes from understanding others, not just waiting for your turn to speak. Interrupting shows impatience and a lack of self-control, 2 qualities that erode the respect others have for you. It's not just about being polite. It's about recognizing the value of someone else's voice, and in doing so, fostering a deeper connection. I had another experience that really drove this lesson home. I was out with friends, and one of them was sharing a deeply personal story about his struggles with anxiety. Halfway through, I interrupted, eager to relate with my own experience, thinking it would make him feel understood. But instead, he looked at me and said, "Can I finish?" The mood shifted instantly. What I thought was empathy came across as hijacking his moment. I wasn't giving him the space to fully express himself, and that moment of connection slipped away. That's the thing about interrupting. It can seem innocent in the moment, but it actually pulls people apart. By not allowing others to finish their thoughts, we're cutting off the possibility of deeper understanding and respect. To break this habit, I started practicing something called active listening. It's simple but powerful. When someone speaks, I make a conscious effort to truly listen, without formulating my response while they're talking. I wait, give them the space to express themselves fully, and only then do I respond. It's a practice that has helped me build stronger connections and, in turn, earn more respect. So the next time you're in a conversation, challenge yourself to really listen. Let others finish their thoughts, even if you're eager to share your own. You might be surprised at how much more meaningful your conversations become, and how much more respect you earn by simply giving people the space to speak. Habit 4. Complaining. Finally, let's talk about complaining, a habit that might seem harmless at first but can quickly turn toxic. We've all vented our frustrations at one point or another. Life gets tough, things don't go our way, and complaining feels like a release. But when it becomes a regular habit, it can drain not only your energy, but also the energy of everyone around you. Worse yet, it makes people lose respect for you. I used to be a chronic complainer myself. I thought it was just a way to bond with people, finding common ground over shared grievances. But I didn't realize how negative it was making me and how it was pushing people away. I remember one phase of my life in particular, when I was stuck in a job I found deeply frustrating. The workload was overwhelming, management was disorganized, and I constantly felt undervalued. Instead of trying to improve the situation or looking for solutions, I vented. I complained to anyone who would listen, co-workers, friends, even my family. At first, people were sympathetic. They'd nod, agree, and offer their own complaints in return. But as time went on, I started noticing something. People began avoiding me. Conversations grew shorter, and I wasn't invited to hang out after work as often. I became that person, the one everyone knew would bring the conversation down. The final straw came when a close friend of mine said, "I care about you, but being around you is getting exhausting. You're always so negative." That comment hit me hard. I had become the very thing I didn't want to be, a negative force in the lives of the people I cared about. The Stoics teach us to focus on what we can control and accept what we cannot. As Epictetus once said, It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Complaining at its core is focusing on the negative, on the things we feel powerless to change. But instead of improving the situation, it traps us in a cycle of negativity. When you constantly complain, you signal to others that you're more focused on the problem than finding a solution. And that's not a trait people respect. Another powerful lesson came during a group project in college. One of my teammates, let's call him Mike, was a relentless complainer. Every meeting he'd go on about how unfair the workload was, how incompetent the professor was, and how pointless the whole project seemed. His negativity was contagious. Soon the entire team's morale plummeted, and what could have been a productive collaboration turned into a miserable slog. We were all fed up, and honestly, just wanted to get the project over with. Looking back, I realized that this experience mirrored my own behavior when I was stuck in that frustrating job. I had likely affected those around me in the same way. But there's a way out. I began practicing gratitude. Instead of focusing on what wasn't going right, I started noticing the things I could be thankful for. In my job, I shifted my mindset from complaining to action. If I felt undervalued, I sought feedback and made a case for why I deserved more recognition. If I saw disorganization, I looked for small ways I could improve processes within my control. It didn't change everything overnight, but it started to shift the energy around me, and people noticed. The Stoics remind us that by focusing on what we can control, we reclaim our power. Complaining keeps us stuck in a place of helplessness, while action moves us forward. People respect those who focus on solutions rather than problems. So next time you feel the urge to complain, take a step back. Ask yourself, is this something I can change? If so, take action. If not, accept it and let it go. Complaining won't improve your situation, but a shift in perspective just might. Thank you for joining me today as we explored these 4 toxic habits that can quietly erode the respect people have for us. The truth is, we all have moments where we slip into these behaviors, whether it's gossiping, being unreliable, interrupting, or complaining. But recognizing these habits is the first step toward changing them. As the Stoics remind us, true strength comes from self-awareness and the willingness to grow. If you found value in today's message, I invite you to subscribe and become part of this community where we strive to improve ourselves through reflection and wisdom. Together, we can work toward living with more integrity, resilience, and inner peace, qualities that will naturally earn us the respect of others. So let's continue this journey of transformation. Remember, it's not about perfection, it's about progress. Every step you take toward breaking these habits is a step toward becoming the person you truly want to be. Until next time, stay strong, stay reflective, and stay stoic.